Open Sky has embarked on this journey to be an anti-racist organization. And this has been one of, for me, memorable part of the time I've been here in this organization. Working to ensure we have a welcoming environment where every single individual, irrespective of who you identify yourself to be, what community you come from, what level in the organization you belong to feel like you're welcome here and your career can thrive here, and you actually belong in this space.
One of the things that I have learned about myself within the Open Sky community is that belonging is very important, and as an LGBTQIA+ person, I believe it is essential to be comfortable where you work. Having experienced some not so comfortable work environments, I've always felt Open Sky has been welcoming and accepting of me.
Coming from my lens as a neurodivergent person, I'm autistic with ADHD. I think it's so important to bring that culture of collaboration together where there's no I in team. And that's how we become the change agents. You will hit all kind of systemic barriers. Part of what we do in this field across the board is we knock those barriers over and find those helpers, those allies that are there to help us just do that.
I feel proud to be a part of an organization that so closely aligns with my values. I feel more confident and prepared to confront bias in my everyday life, in work and at home. I appreciate the opportunity to organize and collaborate with my colleagues around really important issues that affect marginalized communities within the organization.
I think that it's really made me appreciate my privilege that I have grown up with and currently hold, and really the privilege that other people may not have had, and the opportunities I may have had because of my privilege, and really trying to help other people have more opportunities if they haven't had that chance, and really empower them, use their unique skills and talents to be successful.
I would say that DEIB has given me an opportunity of being able to explore other opportunities within the organization. It has presented with a bunch of different resources, different trainings that has allowed me to grow, and different skill assets that will allow me for different advancement within the organization. The most important one is going through the Pathway program, and that has also opened up the door of opportunity for me to go on and pursue my education as my LMHC.
I am really proud of Open Sky's efforts in DEIB. I feel like it's been a very authentic process. We're not done. There's still lots to do. I think so much of it comes from a place of, meeting people where they're at and not being judgmental, and really helping us all learn together. It does change your perspective and your outlook, and you realize how important it is to have a sense of belonging.
Beyond the employees of the organization, there's a lot going on in the community that people know about Open Sky. A guy reached out to me and was telling me, "Oh, I hear about Open Sky, and somebody told me that you work there." I'm like, "Yeah." And he was telling me, "I needed a job, can I apply?" I'm like, "Of course, I'm gonna send you the link," right? So people are talking. When people come into our organization, they feel like they wanna work in this environment. And others who may have gained employment are telling others in the community like, "Hey, the best place to work is Open Sky." And all thanks to the leadership of Ken and other leaders in the organization making all these changes and making things happen. So the words are going out there and people are becoming more aware of our organization. And so we're going to get a whole lot bigger than this, and we're in that direction. And I'm happy about it.